Hello, good evening. Welcome to Look North from the Great Yorkshire Show in Harrogate. Take a look at this. It's the biggest agricultural event in England. Tonight we'll celebrate farming across our region and look at some of the major challenges facing the industry. One of the world's leading water experts says farmers must do more to help clean up our polluted rivers.
If people were swimming and ingesting or swallowing that water, there's a risk that they would get at least some stomach upsets.
We'll ask farmers here what they're doing to reduce pollution, and we'll also find out what our water quality tests show. Also tonight, the little girl who lost her mum to sepsis. Now Millie's family are warning farmers not to leave cuts and infections unchecked. The rising cost of your weekly shop. We ask a leading food company in Yorkshire when prices will stop. And of course, we'll bring you the highlights from across the show and find out who won my race with Paul to the top of an 80-foot pole.
And earlier this afternoon, there were some torrential downpours, but as you can see, the skies are clearing, the sun's out. But what will it be like over the next few days? Join me for a live forecast at the Great Yorkshire Show.
Hello, good evening. You know, this is one of my favourite days of the year. I love broadcasting from the Great Yorkshire Show. It's now in its 164th year. The highlight for me has got to be the animals. This is a great chance for farmers to come together, to celebrate and to show their livestock, but also an opportunity to discuss the big issues that are facing the industry. One of those is pollution. We've talked a lot in recent years about big water companies pumping untreated sewage into our rivers. But some of that also comes from agriculture, from the drop-ins from the animals, from fertiliser that makes its way into our rivers. One of the world's leading water experts has carried out a test on a stream in the moorlands in West Yorkshire. He says that farmers must do more to help with the pollution in our rivers. Spencer Stokes has more.
It's a typical Pennine beck, and we're going to take some samples from it.
On the hunt for water pollutants, E. coli, which causes sickness and diarrhoea, but also nitrates and phosphates that can reduce fish stocks and damage the river ecology.
Just dipping in, just get the...
Up on Ilkley Moor, the water should be pure. There's no heavy industry or sewage outflow pipes. Professor Rick Batterby is an expert in water quality.
We'll send this one off to the lab for E. coli. That's the fecal bacteria. That's a problem for public health. The second sample, it's a smaller sample, we'll send that one off to Aberdeen, and this is for nutrient analysis. That's mainly nitrates and phosphates. And the nitrates and the phosphates, they come from sewage, but they also come from agricultural land.
Any pollutants in the stream will eventually end up here in the Wharfe, a river that has seen levels of toxins peak even when sewage isn't being pumped in. It's thought agriculture is partly to blame, with animal droppings and fertilisers getting into the water. But there is a growing awareness of the problem, and that's led farmers to look for solutions. At this Tadcaster farm, cows now drink from a beck by operating their own pumping device.
If it weren't for the pasture pump, the cows would have been in that water now. They'd be drinking directly from the stream, and actually are far more likely to be pooing directly into that water. And too much nutrient enrichment can be really harmful for wildlife. It can cause excess weed growth, and which in turn can smother the insects and the fish and reduce the dissolved oxygen that they need to survive.
It's not just cattle getting in the river that causes pollution. For centuries, animal manure and slurry from farms has been spread on fields because it boosts crop growth, but can be devastating to freshwater ecology. On this Leeds dairy farm, the slurry is kept away from the stream and, crucially, isn't sprayed on.
We get a bad name for polluting. We don't try to pollute, we try and do the best that we can. All the rivers start from small becks. When you see the big rivers, at some point they started small, and it's just because they're downstream that they've got larger. So every small beck, you know, that is where you've got to look at the pollution to start with.
So how polluted was the stream back on Ilkley Moor? Results from the lab have returned and show it had 10 times the recommended E. coli rate, 10 times more phosphate and 5 times more nitrate.
The samples were crystal clear. but both samples were polluted in different ways, one with nitrates and phosphates and the other one with high concentrations of E. coli. If people were swimming and ingesting or swallowing that water, there's a risk that they would get at least some stomach upsets like diarrhea.
Should farmers be doing more then to protect watercourses?
So there needs to be real encouragement for farmers, even help for farmers in fact, to manage their land so that the waters that drain through their lands don't get polluted. Measures that need to be taken, such as fencing off the becks, can be expensive, and farmers do, I think, need to be compensated to encourage them to do that.
From moorland streams to our bigger rivers, water quality is not where it should be. The question now, can farmers afford to do more to help improve it? Spencer Stokes, BBC Look North.
You're joining us now on the President's Lawn. The show is officially closed, but this lot don't want to go home. Have you had a good day? Yeah! We'll have a chat with them shortly, but first we just heard there, didn't we, about extra support needed to help farmers stop their pollution going into the rivers. Well, today Government Minister for Farming, Mark Spencer, was at the show, so I asked him what the government is going to do to help.
Fertiliser is very expensive. No farmer wants that fertiliser to end up in a river or down a drain. They want that to be available to the crop they're growing. So we're working with farmers, trying to improve the techniques, trying to improve the efficiency of that fertiliser application. We're also doing grants for slurry systems to make sure farmyard manures don't end up in our rivers. So farmers doing a lot of work to improve the environment, and we're going to help and support them on that journey.
As you'll know, some of those measures are costly, so tell us about what help is in place for them.
Yeah, so there are grants to put in new infrastructure like slurry systems, but there's also support for different farming techniques, so putting in cover crops so that those crops absorb any nutrients that are available, so that when you put in the crop you're trying to grow, those nutrients are available to the plant and they've not leached into a river.
You've announced new measures today to help dairy farmers. What are they?
And we're going to legislate to make sure that there is fairness in the dairy supply chain, so that dairy farmers get fair contracts, they get transparency in that system as well. It's been developed in conjunction with processors, with the NFU and dairy farmers, so I'm really optimistic this is going to bring a bit more fairness to that dairy sector.
What will the consumers see in the supermarket with this deal that's been done with the farmers?
So I think they'll see very little change. They'll continue to get high quality British produced milk, but they'll have the knowledge that it'll be done in a way which is fair in the system, that brings basically risk and reward is shared right across that supply chain.
Heck Foods, one of the big retailers in Yorkshire, says food prices are going to remain high for the next 18 months. Is government doing enough to help consumers with their weekly shop?
Yeah, of course, and of course the Chancellor's Chequer's put a huge package together, almost 3,300 per household of support there. But we as DEFRA need to help and support farmers to make sure they continue to be not only profitable but productive, so that they can continue to produce high quality, affordable food for our consumers.
Mark Spencer, thank you. We talked there about food prices and how that's impacting farmers and consumers as well. I'm sure, have you noticed your supermarket shop has gone up? Yes. By how much? How much would you say? Too much. Too much. Money that they'd rather spend at a show like this. One of Yorkshire's most well-known brands, Heck Foods, says they think that the price rises will continue for the next 18 months. So why are things still going up? Why is it happening? Ollie Constable has been investigating.
Every cost you can think of, energy, labour, the raw material price of pork and chicken has had a massive effect on our business.
The sausage maker Heck is not alone.
We've got the capacity to make 500,000 sausages a day here.
Co-founder Jamie is feeling the pinch. Every day he's taking calls from suppliers who tell him they're upping their prices. And now there's a warning to customers.
Their shopping budget will be incredibly high for the next 18 months. Grain prices have fallen across the market. This takes time to fall back into the supply chain, unfortunately.
And it's that supply chain which sees us being stung at the checkout. Like a domino effect, if a farmer is paying more for grain to feed their cows, then it's passed along to the producer, then the retailer, and ultimately us, the customer. In a year, cupboard staples like baked beans have gone from 76p a tin to £1.7. A kilo of potatoes jumped from 58p to 72p. And 2 pints of milk will now set you back almost £1.30, when a year ago it was just £1.
You've just got to pay it, haven't you, if you want it? Well, it's just rough, really, isn't it? I've got, obviously, a 3-year-old, and Now I'm like looking really deep into the prices of the tomatoes, like which one's 125 or 175.
Phenomenal, sort of twice what it used to be, definitely, for the same things that you're getting.
But it's not just us at the end of the chain who are struggling.
Yeah, it is tough, it is, and it's very, very stressful. Our feed price has gone through the roof, it's more than doubled. Fertiliser has gone up, wages have gone up.
Ted is a farmer who looks after a herd of cows here in North Yorkshire, with his Wagyu beef being sold across the country. He works with Grace at Warrendale Wagyu, selling the beef at a fixed price. Much of it goes to wholesale customers, but also some supermarkets. Most of it, though, ends up in the hands of people like John, who runs the pub The Alice Hawthorne near York.
Danny, how long are you going to be on this stock?
Everyone in this supply chain has bills to pay, bills which have kept growing.
The costs have gone really through the roof, you know, whether it's the energy bills, which have really been crippling, but followed by now, as we all know, the price of food. Passing it on is very difficult to, you're very frightened of doing it. I think we're all worried that we're going to lose our customers.
Back at the factory, and there is a glimmer of hope.
I do think it'll start to eat it after 18 months. Who knows what can happen? No one's got a crystal ball, but for now, I think there's this light at the end of the tunnel.
Ollie Constable, BBC Look North.
We're going to discuss this further with a couple of guests. I'm joined by Adam Henson. He's a farmer, and you might recognise him from Country File. He's one of the presenters. And also Minette Batters, who is from the National Farmers Union. Thank you both for joining us. We just heard there about the pressure on farmers. Adam, you will know that yourself, being a working farmer. There was the weather, we've had the war in Ukraine, and the price hikes. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
I think so. I think there's some really positive things going on in agriculture now. We're looking more at sort of regenerative farming, looking after our soils, bringing our carbon footprint down. But in Britain, we produce some amazing produce under very tight legislation, but that's something we need to celebrate and get more people buying British and supporting British. And I think that young people coming out of agricultural college or university now have got a very exciting future ahead of them. You know,
A government minister was here today. Are the government listening to farmers?
I think they're listening. They need to start doing. The new environmental schemes, sustainable farming initiatives, have been changed and altered and are much better than they were. We need to celebrate that. But there's more to be done. Food security is important. Our trade deals are important to get those right, and supporting the countryside and the farmers and the people that live in it.
Minette, one of the big slogans this year from the NFU is Yorkshire feeding Yorkshire, that local cycle.
We've done a huge piece of work, which is really looking at the out-of-home market. So the pubs, the bars, the hotels, the restaurants, that in all is 50% of the value of the food market in this country. And we're really just trying to tell the story. We've done a lot of work with case studies. So McDonald's, for instance, actually has really good sourcing credentials. They source nearly all that they sell, so milk, poultry meat, beef, all from farms that are either UK or the Republic of Ireland. Organic milk as an example. So that's a fast food chain, but we've also been focusing on other businesses trying to tell that story and trying to create further relationships about links back to farms so that we can sell more British, more local, people really buying into the climate change challenge but wanting affordability in there too.
For the consumer, they often think buying British is expensive. Is it?
We are actually, in Britain, we have the third, per income spend, we have the third most affordable food in the world. So coming just below the US and Singapore. Singapore doesn't actually produce any of its own food. So people here, I know everybody feels the pressure at the moment, but we do have really affordable food. And cost inflation on farm at the moment, sitting at about 43%. So these are challenging times for everyone.
Adam, very quickly, highlight from the show this year.
I really enjoyed going to the innovation area where they're looking at tech and lots of exciting new things happening in agriculture. You know, young people, whatever you're interested in, the agricultural food supply chain could be for you as a career. It's very rewarding and the best job in the world.
Adam, Minette, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, another big issue being raised at the show this year by a farming family from North Yorkshire is the risk of sepsis to farmers after they sadly lost their daughter to the disease. Now, sepsis is a life-threatening reaction reaction to an infection. And tragically, Hannah Brown died in 2021. She was just 26. She had a gorgeous little girl, and her death has sparked a national campaign to raise awareness among farmers who often leave their open cuts unchecked. Abba Giola has been to meet the family.
Millie is being raised by her dad Ben, his parents and her mum's parents. Her mum Hannah died 2 years ago. She was only 26 and Millie was just 6 months old.
Oh, it was heartbreaking. It's broke my heart, no question about it.
Having Millie is absolutely wonderful, you know, she's just a joy for all of us, an absolute treasure. Ben struggles sometimes, you know, he misses Hannah terribly. She was an amazing person in Ben's life and just the person he needed.
Hannah died of sepsis. She'd felt ill but kept on working and no one realised how serious it was.
She bumped into a friend who was very concerned about Hannah and said, "I really don't think you're well, Hannah, and I think you need to go to the hospital." And Hannah had said, "Oh no, I'm fine. You know, I've just got a bit of flu or something, I'll be fine." So on Hannah's route home, the friend telephoned me to say, "I've asked Hannah to go to hospital, please make sure she does, because I am concerned."
Just 3 days later, Hannah died in hospital. Her death has sparked a new campaign to raise awareness of the disease among the farming community. Today, Dawn and Millie were at the Great Yorkshire Show to spread the word to farmers.
If you get a cut in your hand or an injury in your leg, you tend to just think, oh, it'll be right, it'll sort itself out. And sometimes it won't.
Hannah's family say the life-saving message is starting to get through.
I know we've saved 4 lives with sepsis. I know of friends that I know have been to the doctors and they asked, could it be sepsis, and it was. And if they hadn't probably asked, the outcome could have probably been different.
Millie is growing up without her mum now, but the hope is other farming families can be prevented from having to live with the same loss. Abby Giola, BBC Look North.
A lovely family there, aren't they? OK, we're going to move away from the show now and bring you some other news from across the region. A former Labour peer's bid to overturn his conviction for sex abuse against 2 children in the 1970s has failed. Lord Nazir Ahmed of Rotherham served 2.5 years in prison after being found guilty of sexual offences. The Court of Appeal today found Ahmed did not have arguable grounds for a full appeal. A suspected World War II explosive has been removed safely from Meadowhall Retail Park in Sheffield. Police and an army of bomb disposal team were called this morning after the device was found during building works. The retail park has since reopened. Plans for a £13.9 million revamp of Dewsbury Station have been revealed by Kirklees and the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. The proposals will see new safety and security features, improved seating facilities and a new customer service desk. Here at the Great Yorkshire Show, there's lots of talk about growing food on a mass scale, but you don't need acres of land. Take a look at these, the veg boxes that have been created by local primary schools. And there's greening and grow your own projects popping up all across our region. Some of them are shared with communities. Beth Parsons has been to the most unusual spaces to look at some of them.
Claude has a passion for plants.
I think we're at a place where there's a bit of urban magic happening.
He's the head of landscaping at the Climate Innovation District in Leeds, an eco-friendly housing development in the city centre near the river.
I've always tried to incorporate edibles into the wider landscape. Your culinary herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, chives, in a constant supply on site, and that was always the intention, to grow it in abundance. And then on top of that, there's seasonal stuff, your cabbages, cucumbers, pumpkins. We should have some garlic, I think, just about to come out from last year.
The gardening club of the so-called secret garden there mingles flowers with fruit and blends evergreens with edible greens.
Most things are dotted around and mixed up so that it's a surprise and think, oh, I'll have a bit of that.
Elsewhere in West Yorkshire, Bradford is home to multiple grow-your-own projects that are looked after by the whole community, like this one on Lister Avenue. And this one on Bradford Moor, which was a dumping ground until the residents there transformed not only the space, but how they use it.
It wasn't in a good state. It was literally just overgrown grass and loads of building material and junk. But now we've managed to develop it. The land is actually owned by the council. We've got responsibility, so Bradford Pass has got responsibility over the land, but this is a community space.
We've got a lot of fruit trees, so we've got fig trees, apple trees, plum trees, pear trees, herbs, mint, parsley, coriander. Every month we have a barbecue or a community meal, and everybody from the local community is invited. Living in Bradford Moor, I mean, if you just scan the camera around and look, our gardens are, a metre square, 2 metres square, small pieces of land in front of our house. We have a lot of families that are struggling, that are, at present, and they can come and help themselves to whatever is growing here.
Projects like these are about making the most of the places, the plants and the people around you. Beth Parsons, BBC Look North.
Looks delicious, doesn't it? Well, they've been waiting here very patiently, so I think we should have a chat with our renter crowd. Good evening. How have you found the show today?
Very good, yeah. Yeah, enjoyed it a lot, yeah.
Highlights?
I like the howling cows.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
Good one. And how about you? What's been the highlight for you?
Lorenzo and his horse is absolutely magnificent.
Well, you're in for a treat because the man himself is here. We'll talk to him in a moment.
Fantastic.
What about you girls? What have you liked about the show today?
I loved looking at all the pigs and the goats and also on the Ferris wheel. And I enjoyed the chocolate-coated strawberries, the alpacas and doing the whittling.
It is all about the chocolate, isn't it? Yeah. Is this your first time at the show, girls?
For me, yes.
Yeah, and how about you? You've been here before, haven't you? Yeah, so she's a revisitor. And what about you, young man? What's been the highlight for you today?
Well, I like seeing the goats too and seeing all the horses jump.
Yeah, they were fantastic, weren't they? That has definitely been a highlight. And you, madam, this was your first time at the show. What did you make of it?
It was absolutely fantastic. The dog agility and, I've got to say, Lorenzo. Oh, my goodness. I just don't know how he does it on the horses. Fantastic.
There's a lot of love for you, Lorenzo. We'll come to you shortly, but first, lots of love for this man as well. Charles Mills, show director. Good to see you again, Charles. Day one, how's it gone?
Wonderful. The sun is shining still. I know an odd shower. Paul actually got it right, the forecast, for once.
For once?
But it was a great day. I think everybody seems to have... I hope all you've enjoyed it.
How much of a boost is this for the local community?
Massive. A lot of hotels and restaurants really do benefit. Yeah, the whole community, the whole of Yorkshire benefits from this event.
Charles, thank you. Let's have a chat with Lorenzo. Lorenzo, oh my goodness, ooh la la, Lorenzo from the south of France. The crowd certainly came to flock to see you perform. You've got to see this man in action. You'll see some pictures now. So you balance on these horses, Lorenzo. How on earth do you do it?
Well, my speciality is to connect the horse with me and, yes, to jump. I love this, and I love to share this with the young generation, the passion for the horse, and to bring adrenaline for the public.
Well, there's certainly adrenaline on all aspects there. How do you train the horses? How long does it take to do all that?
Yes, it's like maybe, okay, it's my life, so I make all this for my horse. It takes maybe 2-3 years to get them in one show, but yeah, the final show is all my life.
Yeah. And what do you make of the Yorkshire welcome here at the show? Because it's a few years since you've been here.
Yes, I started, I think, in 2008, so a long time ago, and I improve my show all the time. I try to make better. I love to be here. I love how they are nice with me.
How they welcome you, a good Yorkshire welcome.
It's fantastic crowd, fantastic organization, and yeah, big fest.
Well, we hope you'll be back next year. Thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Now, talking of challenges like balancing on horses, something else that's new at the show this year, or hasn't been here for a few years, is climbing humongous poles.
You said, would you like to climb a pole? I thought it'd be a telegraph pole, but it was nearly 100 feet tall, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is how the pros do it. So you can tell them, Paul, because I've been talking for quite a while now.
Right, OK, well, the guys in less than 30 seconds climbed up that pole like Spider-Man. I have never seen... It's like a rat up a drain pipe. Absolutely unbelievable. And then we decided, did we not, to have a competition.
Oh, we did. Take a look at this. Yeah.
2, 1, go! Come on, ladies and gents, lots of prizes here. 2 brand new trying
It is a lot harder than it looks, isn't it? You've got to use these spikes and put your feet in sort of ballerina style to jab into the tree and then use the rope at the same time. A lot of upper body strength.
Well, I couldn't believe it. I really struggled. And you look how fast you went up the pole. But just to let the viewers know, there were people tethering us, and Amy was definitely getting winched up that pole, and the guys that were on my winch were just laughing at me.
It was a load of rubbish. What do you think? He's talking twaddle, isn't he?
Oh, thank you. Hey, look, I got the forecast right, so you can stop that off.
For once in his life. It's a bit of Yorkshire competitiveness and grit and years of ballet dancing and very long limbs that got me to the top of that pole.
You flew up that pole.
It was terrifying, I got to say. I thought, surely they'll stop me at some point and I'll come down, but I thought you'd already gone to the top, so I thought, well, I can't stop if he's there.
Well, I did about a third of the pole anyway. I need to give the weather forecast, and can I just thank Charles, who runs this great show, for thanking me for the accurate weather forecast, and I will be buying him a pint afterwards because it's gone absolutely beautifully. Let's have a look at the pressure chart because it's quite surprising. We've got so much sunshine here at the Great Yorkshire Show. You can see that there's blue skies almost everywhere, but we'll see another system coming in later on Friday, bringing wet and windy weather up from the southwest. So if we have a look at the details through this evening, there are still one or two heavy thundery showers around, but overnight they will largely die away. We'll see decent clear spells developing, and with a brisk breeze, we shouldn't see temperatures falling much lower than 10 or 11 degrees. And so for tomorrow at the Yorkshire Showground, I think the showers may well start quite quickly, but they'll move through. So really, it's another day of sunny intervals and scattered showers. And I think certainly in the afternoon, one or two of them will be heavy with the risk of a bit of thunder. But just like today, and we did have a very, very heavy shower around lunchtime, it cleared away and then the sun came back out. Temperatures around 19 Celsius, a little below average. That's 66 degrees Fahrenheit. The further outlook then, Thursday we see fewer showers, more sunshine, not a bad day, especially in eastern areas. It should be mostly dry here. Friday, a bright start, rain later. The weekend does look, I'm afraid, rather unsettled. Amy, that's the forecast.
What has been your highlight?
Charles saying I got the forecast right. What do you think?
My highlight was
look at
Lorenzo,
that.
and of course,
Lorenzo was amazing, to be fair.
Have you all had a good night? Yeah! We'll see you next year. Good night from us. Bye-bye.
See you later.